Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Quiz and Quill podcast. This is our first episode of the spring 2022 season. My name's Margot, and I'm currently serving as co-managing editor for Quiz and Quill. The first piece we're going to present is Kelsey Brown's poem, In the Year of Distractions, followed by an interview by my co-managing editor, Whitney. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy.
In the Year of Distractions. Dust floats around us in the thrift store. You hold up a cardigan that looks exactly like 3 you already own, and I laugh. We scan the aisles for costume pieces and take home our prizes to celebrate Halloween alone. I knit hats for children and get to watch Christmas through their eyes. Twinkling string lights seem brighter, and I do not notice the cat about to break an ornament. When we gather in for the spring semester, we commiserate about spending the holidays with our families. My mother whined over the turkey that I had to leave so soon. I reminded her with a forkful of stuffing that I have a job. Your father preached to the living room about the evils of government regulations while everyone else tried to ignore him. You spend my birthday with me in my bedroom, playing Mario Kart with someone across a computer screen. We take nothing seriously except the race, and winter rages onward outside the open window. I pass St. Patrick's Day and Easter by laying face down on the floor of my bedroom. I make blankets. I watch cartoons. I write. I forget. I make blankets. I watch cartoons. I write. I forget. I make blankets. I watch. And we return to Halloween. We're going to look for costumes in a thrift store, and you're going to show me a sweater exactly like 3 you already own, and we will take home our prizes to celebrate.
All right, that was In the Year of Distractions by Kelsey Brown, and we have Kelsey Brown here. What about the escape theme of the fall chapbook spoke to you to submit this poem?
So when I saw the call for submissions and I saw the theme, I was very excited to see that theme because I feel like I've seen a lot of calls for submissions that are like about what's been going on, and it just, there's too much there. So I thought about, how like everybody else, I've been doing a lot this year to try to just not pay attention to things, to take breaks from reality and distract myself. And I thought about what I did most often to distract myself, and that was hang out with my roommate. So this poem is about the different ways I spent time with my roommate, like the more memorable occasions.
So the poem goes through the different holidays, and what was the significance of this choice?
I went through the different holidays because they felt like more significant, easier to remember times, but also because I wanted to show that time was passing quickly, and especially when I come back to Halloween again at the end and nothing has changed. I think that's really the point I was trying to get to. Like, all this time has been passing and nothing has changed, and we're still distracting ourselves because we have to.
Yeah. How did this poem come about, and did it start with a line, or is it more of a concept of that stagnation that you wanted to convey?
It was a while ago that I wrote it, so I was trying to remember this earlier. I started thinking about spending time with my roommate as a distraction and what we did most often, and what we did most often was go to a thrift store and just kind of scan the aisles, spend 2 hours there on a weekday when it was empty. And so I thought about what that looked like and started with the dust floating around in the thrift store. And then, since I was talking about Halloween, I thought it would be good to go through a couple other holidays, and then it just kind of came together as something that was passing time, and I sped it up at the mention of St. Patrick's Day and Easter specifically because that spring semester was just a wash. I hardly remember any of it. I spent so much time literally laying face down on the floor of my room. So just putting all of those memories in and then kind of having it be chronological was what I did.
What was the process of writing this poem, and how long would you estimate you took on it?
It didn't really take that long. I am the type of person that goes through drafts really quickly and then doesn't do a whole lot of revising in the second draft stage. So it probably took me maybe 2 different sit-downs of 20 minutes to get a first draft worked out, and then a couple weeks later, I came back to it and worked on a little bit of the wording and the order of it, the spacing, the way it looks on the page, and all of that kind of stuff.
So I heard you had a reading coming up. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, on March 26th, there's going to be a reading hosted at Otterbein to celebrate the publication of this anthology. It's called I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices. It's an anthology focused on the unique culture of Ohio's Appalachian population, one-of-a-kind collection, and it's sponsored by the Academy of American Poets, amongst others. Dr. Kohler posted about it on the English Department Facebook page forever ago, and I just happened to be checking my Facebook notifications for, the one time a year that I do that. And I saw it, and I was like, oh, well, I'm from Ohio. So I looked through some of the ones that I had written for my senior writing project that I had then, after graduation, morphed into a collection that I called Midwestern Urges, based on one of the poems that's in that group. So I looked through some of those, and I found a couple that I was like, oh, yeah, no, this would really fit. So I submitted 3 of them, and I found out that I had one accepted, and it's called The Boonies, and it's about a drive through rural Ohio.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for your submission and for joining us here today.
Our next piece is a personal essay by Katie Frame titled Love Letter to My Rural Upbringing. After that, she's going to be interviewed by our Quiz and Quill essay editor, Parker. There's a road in my hometown that doesn't have a sign to mark its beginning or end. There were times when it did have one, but each period seemed shorter than the last. It became a game to see who could steal the road sign the quickest, who could hang the sign on their wall and admire the name that doubled as an innuendo. And after so many times the sign came up missing, the town stopped putting up new ones. But that's the beauty of a small town. No one needed a sign to know where the specific road was. We grew up with the geography tattooed on our bodies. We knew every gravel shoulder, every unmarked dirt road, every abandoned railroad track. Even though the road was no longer on the map, the locals knew where it was. When I was in kindergarten, I met a boy with an electric smile and a laugh that brightened the room. He was often in trouble, but it wasn't the trouble that hurt anyone else. He was a boy with a lot of energy and nowhere to spend it. He'd shout out in class and get out of his seat and run around until he was forced to move his behavior clip to yellow, then red, then, I recall this happening only once, to purple. It was purple that the school would wear 13 years later for our rival football game. We wore purple from head to toe, carrying purple balloons and pinning purple ribbons to whoever hadn't gotten the message. Purple was our black, and when we released the balloons into the air after that final whistle, I thought of that boy with too much energy, who gave me his school photo with a heart scribbled on the back, who never made it to see his 18th birthday. The crops in my hometown grow wild and without boundaries. They seep into the earth and suck the history of the dirt beneath their roots, crawling skyward until they're cut down by a growling machine, reduced to bloodied scraps in a matter of seconds. God, we say, why is there so much corn in Ohio, as if it was not planted by our neighbors and our friends and our ancestors, as if our kids do not get lost in it every fall, as if farmers don't set up shop in gravel parking lots and sell it from the beds of their old rusted pickup trucks. We complain as if we don't hide from the police between the stalks after finding a clear circle and getting drunk under the moonlight with the same people we've known since we were 5 years old, toasting to those still here, those who aren't, and those who never got the chance. God, why is there so much corn in Ohio? Because we plant it, because it feeds on us, because we take from it and it takes from us, because generation after generation have farmed the same land, yet the crops find new pockets to sink their teeth into, to bleed until they run dry, all while we dance between the rows and get lost among the stalks. My high school principal drank from a mug that read liberal tears and chased down any girl who dared to wear leggings, but the N-word was often screamed across the cafeteria, and the football team regularly ripped down posters advertising the GSA. Everyone knew everyone, but that didn't mean everyone was safe. 1 coffee shop, 3 gas stations, 2 pizza places. 1 very lonely subway. Unmarked dirt roads and Confederate flags hanging from windows. Guns on dashboards and drive your tractor to school day. Knowing the cop who pulled you over because his son is in your class. Knowing the librarian because she was in Fright with your dad. And getting discounts at local stores because they're owned by family friends. Testing the waters to see how safe you are before you dive in too deep. I grew up in rural Ohio on the cusp of a revolution. There were few people of color, few people who identified as anything except heterosexual and cisgender. I knew every one of my neighbors and every back road within a 10-mile radius. I could get home 7 different ways and pass 8 different people I knew. My hometown is long behind me, but I hear it in the way I drop consonants, in the way my friends correct the way I speak. I see it in the way I still marvel at buildings taller than 4 stories and highways wider than 4 lanes. I can't escape my upbringing. I won't. It's a tattoo buried deep beneath my skin. Take 70 east towards Wheeling, get off at exit 169 and turn right onto State Route 83. A few miles down the road, you'll see an unmarked road on your left. It was marked once. Several times, actually. It doesn't need to be marked anymore. We all know where it is.
What a fantastic piece, really. What inspired you to write something like that?
I had to read Los Angeles Notebook by Joan Didion.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was really cool how she dissected the culture of Los Angeles while still kind of being like, I'm also a part of it, like I live here. And I'm a senior and I'm not moving back to my hometown. I did my last living in my hometown stint over the summer. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to analyze this culture I grew up in and how I broke out of it, but I'm still never going to leave it. And that was what came from it.
For sure. And in your essay, you broach a lot of heavy subjects, things like politics, LGBTQ rights, death, loss. What inspired you to sort of look into those things specifically?
Something I noticed when I left my hometown was I considered myself liberal in high school, but I was not liberal for Otterbein. I came here and I didn't know what they, them pronouns were. And I had to learn all that stuff, and I noticed other people I went to high school with slowly, especially at the time of the election, kind of coming out and being like, hey, I grew up like that, but I don't think that way anymore. And it's kind of like, you get out of your hometown, you realize there's other things out there. But when you're growing up, especially in a majority white, cisgender, heterosexual area, you don't even know those things are out there. And people there still don't realize those things.
For sure. And now having left in hindsight, what do you think is the most important thing that some of the hometown people you know might be able to learn?
Don't stay in the hometown. Get out, leave. Don't go to the college that's there just because it's there, unless it's for financial reasons. But if you don't leave where you grew up, you're never really going to grow.
Sure.
So I don't even want to think about what I would be if I had stayed in that hometown for the past 4 years. But I didn't. So here we are now.
Yeah. And now that you've kind of left that life behind you, in your essay you mention a lot about sort of the creature comforts of home and being a local. So what does being a so-called local mean to you now?
I thought the other day, which is kind of in a contrast to this essay, but I came to love my college town. I came to love Westerville more than I did my hometown. And I think it's just, I opened the essay, there's this road where, it's not marked, we all know where it is. I know how to get home, 7 different ways. And I think, it's just, knowing where you are, knowing the geography, knowing if you get lost, you can get back. I don't want to forget where I came from, but I always like to know presently where I am, both mentally and physically.
So is that why you'd say you started the essay sort of on the same note that you ended it?
Yeah, because it's just, I always liked that small town mentality of, you know how to get around.
And is that something that you miss now that you're no longer in your hometown?
Yes. It's really hard. There's not really back roads in this area to learn, or if you just want to go drive, where are you going to go? OSU? You can't just go get lost in a cornfield. So there's that, I guess, aesthetic of being from that rural area. I do miss it, but I don't want to go back to it.
Speaking of corn, in your essay you kind of mentioned this almost parasitic relationship between the people that live there and the corn. So I have to ask, Is the corn coming to life at night and sucking out the souls of the residents of your town?
God, I hope so. I live across from a cornfield, which astounds my friends that are from this area. They're like, what do you mean you live across from a cornfield? I'm like, I live across from a cornfield. But I live in an area where the farms have been passed down over generation. So I just think that's cool that, like, the land has always been there. Like, you know who owns the land around here. Around you. Like, I can't tell you who owns any of the land here. I can tell you, like, who owns all of the land around my childhood home.
For sure.
So that's kind of where that came from. Also the fact that people at my high school just really threw parties in cornfields.
Not much to do in small towns, right?
It's not.
So why do you feel that writing this piece now is more important than it's ever been?
Because I'm not going home. I left, winter break was probably my last time living at home. Like, as soon as I move out of my apartment here, like, when we graduate, I'm staying here. Like, I'm moving into a house with my friends. But all of my family is from there, and they're still going to be there. I'm the only one that's left. So it was just kind of like a reflection and a closure of childhood.
Another line that I really enjoyed in the essay was you said that you grew up in rural Ohio on the cusp of a revolution. Can you speak to that a little more?
Yeah, that kind of goes back to people from my high school that left and realized they weren't these conservative, closed-minded people that their parents raised them to be. And I rejected that from, like, age 15 because I had Tumblr. But other people didn't. There was I think it was called, like, Young Americans for Freedom Club, that people were, like, 16 in it. And it's like, you don't really... Like, your parents kind of fed you those ideas. And then, like, my county, you would expect in the 2020 election, it was like, okay, it's probably, like, 18% Democrat. It was, like, 36.
Wow.
And that just made me oddly proud, because I knew a lot of them were probably, like, our generation, people I went to high school with. So, I feel like our generation is going to do a lot once we get a little bit older.
Do you think that's a trend that'll kick in even in your hometown?
I hope so, but I think a lot of those people are leaving.
Sure.
But for the ones that stay, hopefully.
So what do you think the solution is then? No, that's a big question, but if everyone's leaving, then it kind of creates an interesting problem.
Don't know. I wish I had the answer.
Yeah. How do you feel about country music?
I am a reformed horse girl.
Oh.
So I will never voluntarily listen to it.
Fair
We'll
enough.
put it that way.
Last question. I have to know.
Yes.
What did the sign say?
A rough and ready road.
Oh, that's great. Well, Katie, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Parker.
Thanks for listening to the first episode of our spring 2022 season, and we hope you enjoyed it. It really means so much that you took time out of your day to listen to the Quiz and Quill podcast and help to amplify the artistic voices of Otterbein. See you soon!
Support for this podcast was provided by the English and Communication departments at Otterbein University. This episode was recorded and edited by Jeremy Lawrence. For more Quiz and Quill content, and to stay up on our events and submission opportunities, please follow us on social media and check out our website, quizandquill.com.